film begins with a man telling his son about their people's history. A vibranium-containing meteor crash landed in Africa many years ago. 5 tribes began fighting over the vibranium until one of the shamans spoke to the panther god Bast and consumed a herb that empowered him to become the first Black Panther. The man united the tribes to form the nation of Wakanda, allowing him to ascend to the throne. The Jabari tribe, on the other hand, chose to seek refuge in the mountains, separating themselves to the other tribes. The Wakandans used vibranium to create powerful technology and chose to isolate themselves from the rest of the civilized world by creating a force field that conceals the nation from view. We jump to 1992 in Oakland where Njobu and James, 2 men, intend to transport weapons throughout the city. A knock is heard at the door. When James opens it, he discovers 2 Dora Milaje warriors. Njobu spots them and reveals himself to be a Wakandan. King T'Chaka, Njobu's brother, enters the room with the warriors. T'Chaka invites Njobu to return home after being dispatched to California as a spy to apprehend Ulysses Clow, but Njobu has other plans. T'Chaka then exposes that James is actually Zuri, another Wakandan spy. They discover that Njobu has stolen vibranium for himself and will return him home to stand trial for his crimes. In the present day, T'Challa is set to become heir to the throne after T'Chaka's death. Along with Okoye, a general of the Dora Milaje, he is flying over Nigeria. The plan is to find his ex-girlfriend Nakia, who is working undercover with mercenaries smuggling women and young men disguised as soldiers. T'Challa, as Black Panther, jumps out of the plane and uses Wakandan technology to eliminate the mercenaries' vans. As the goons approach T'Challa, he fights them all before finding Nakia. Later, she joins T'Challa and Okoye on their journey back home. The 3 come back to Wakanda and rejoin with T'Challa's mother Ramonda and his younger sister Shuri in order to prepare for T'Challa's inaugural ceremony as King of Wakanda. To witness, all of the clans gather by a waterfall. Zuri gives T'Challa a drink that takes away the Black Panther's power. Following that, none of the other tribes make a decision to challenge T'Challa. However, when the Jabari tribe appears, their leader, M'Baku, steps forward to attempt to challenge T'Challa for the throne. The 2 begins fight, with M'Baku nearly succeeding until T'Challa gains the upper hand and forces M'Baku to tap out and surrender, allowing T'Challa to rightfully claim the king. T'Challa is given another drink after the ceremony to restore his powers before being buried in sand and taken into the ancestral plane. There, he sees his father. He sobs upon seeing him, and they embrace. Then he expresses his concerns about becoming king and doing the responsible thing. T'Chaka explains to his son that even though he's a good person, it is difficult for a good person to be king. He then wakes up and expresses his gratitude for the opportunity to see his father again. In London, Eric Killmonger Stevens is admiring artifacts from African cultures at museum. He inquires of the guide about a hammer-like weapon, which she recognizes as one thing, but Killmonger corrects her and reveals it is made of Wakanda vibranium. The guide then passes out as a result of something Killmonger managed to slip into her coffee to create a distraction. Medics arrive, but they are actually Clow and his thugs. They assassinate the guards, and Killmonger grabs the weapon before fleeing with his crew. In the next scene, T'Challa and Nakia take a stroll through Wakanda's downtown. He invites her to stay at home and assist him in running things, but she declines to continue working in Wakanda. T'Challa later visits a wild rhino in a pen with his best friend Wakabi. Okoye, who is also Wakabi's lover, summons them to the palace. They talk in the palace about that robbery. And that night, Clow plans to sell the vibranium piece to an American buyer in South Korea. Wakabi wishes to join T'Challa in his search for Clow, who murdered Wakabi's parents, but T'Challa requests that he stay and keep things safe while he departs. Before the journey, T'Challa meets with Shuri, who has created a number of impressive technologies, such as sound-absorbing shoes which she refers to as sneakers, and adjustments to the Black Panther suit. It's masked as a necklace, and it absorbs every hit and converts it into kinetic energy. T'Challa, Nakia, and Okoye go undercover to a casino in Busan to find Clow and his buyer. T'Challa meets Everett Ross, who is also secretly working. He learns that Ross is the American who will be purchasing Clow's stolen artifact. They intend to apprehend him during the negotiations, but T'Challa says he will take Clow to Wakanda. The goons appear and begin their deal with the undercover Ross. His assistant takes a suitcase full of diamonds as payment for the relic, and he quickly realizes he is being set up. One of Clow's men compromises Okoye, forcing her to combat them. Clow and his men flee and ride through the streets, attracting the attention of Nakia and Okoye, which leads the two to chase them. T'Challa follows in his suit as Shuri rides a car through a representation back in Wakanda that controls an actual car on which T'Challa rides. The bad guys shoot at him, but the bullet hits give him kinetic energy, which he diverts to the baddies. Clow fires at Nakia and Okoye's car, destroying it but not killing them. He also crashes Shuri's remote car. T'Challa arrives at Clow's vehicle and rips a tire, causing him to crash. He goes to finish Clow, but Nakia reminds him that he is being watched. They arrest Clow and take him into custody. Ross investigates Clow while T'Challa and Okoye hear in via a device T'Challa settled on Ross. Clow tells Ross everything he didn't realize about Wakanda and everything it has to offer. In the meantime, Killmonger and his team set up explosives behind a wall outside. Nakia notices this on security cameras and rushes to alert everyone, but the villains blow the wall down. When they begin shooting, Ross shoves Nakia out of the way, taking a shot in the back. T'Challa rushes them but Killmonger fires at him, sending him back. T'Challa notices a ring around Killmonger's neck similar to one that owned to his grandfather as Killmonger takes Clow away. Ross is given medication to keep him calm until they arrive home. The villains proceed to a plane that Killmonger wishes to use to travel to Wakanda. Clow kidnaps Killmonger's girlfriend because he has other plans, but Killmonger kills the woman before shooting Clow. He informs Killmonger that he will not be allowed into Wakanda unless he reveals a tattoo on his lip that most Wakandans have. He then murders Clow. Back in Wakanda, W'Kabi expresses his displeasure with T'Challa for failing to bring Clow in. During the same time, Shuri is tending to Ross, who is being healed by vibranium. T'Challa then goes to find Zuri and questions him about Killmonger's possession of his grandfather's ring. Then, Zuri is forced to confess what he knew about N'Jobu. In a flashback to 1992, N'Jobu steals the vibranium in order to distribute it to other people of African descent so that they can fight back against their persecutors. N'Jobu pointed his gun at Zuri, and T'Chaka stepped in and killed him with his claws. It made T'Chaka extremely sad, and they left his son, Eric, alone. When this happened, the boy was in the courtyard, and he later discovered his father's body. Eric went on to become a Black Ops soldier, earning the moniker, Killmonger, due to his high death count, as evidenced by the marks on his skin for everyone he's ever murdered. After that, Killmonger enters Wakanda carrying Clow's body. He hands it over to W'Kabi, who leads Killmonger to the palace. Killmonger uncovers his real name, N'Jadaka, as well as the fact that he's N'Jobu's son. W'Kabi proves it to everyone by showing them Killmonger's ring. He declares his intention to ascend to the throne and challenges T'Challa for the position. Everyone gathers once more by the falls for the challenge. Killmonger fights brutally and easily defeats T'Challa. Zuri intervenes to save T'Challa, knowing that Killmonger should have a grudge against him. To the horror of Ramonda, Shuri, and Nakia, Killmonger fatally impales Zuri and takes T'Challa down before putting him over the falls. As a result, Killmonger is crowned king. Killmonger enters the ancestral plane and returns to his old apartment, where he witnesses the moment he discovered his father's body. He comes across N'Jobu's old journals and even talks briefly with the man himself. After awaking, Killmonger commands everyone to fire a garden of heart-shaped herbs for future kings, but Nakia manages to sneak one away with her. Ramonda, Shuri, and Ross accompany Nakia to the mountains in search of the Jabari tribe. They approach M'Baku and request his assistance. He informs the group that T'Challa was saved out of the river and is now in a catatonic state. Ramonda grinds the herb into a drink for T'Challa to drink before burying him in the snow where he is resting. He enters the ancestral plane and sees T'Chaka once more, and this time he criticizes him for abandoning Killmonger. T'Chaka admits that he hid this truth from his son and expresses regret. T'Challa then awakens and he asks M'Baku for assistance in fighting Killmonger, but he declines. Killmonger now has the assistance of W'Kabi and other Wakandan soldiers as he prepares to send their weapons around the world to other operatives and mercenaries, just as his father had planned. T'Challa, returning as Black Panther, shoots down one of their jets as it flies overhead. W'Kabi and his army charge at T'Challa, but he uses his kinetic energy to blast them away. The Dora Milaje is then led into battle by Okoye. Shuri grants Ross access to a jet to decapitate the others before they depart Wakanda. Ross is able to take them all out. Nakia joins Shuri and Okoye in their fight against Killmonger, who is now dressed in his own suit. W'Kabi sends armored rhinos into the middle of the fight. W'Kabi and his army surround the Shuri and others. Suddenly, the Jabari appear to assist the Dora Milaje. Okoye intervenes when one of the rhinos nearly runs straight down M'Baku. She forces W'Kabi and his troops to surrender. T'Challa tackles Killmonger, preventing him from hurting Shuri, and they both tumble into the vibranium mines. They fight on until T'Challa uses the technology down there to mess with Killmonger's suit, exposing him so that T'Challa can impale him using his own short spear. Killmonger, now vulnerable and dying, expresses regret for not seeing how beautiful Wakanda truly is. T'Challa transports Killmonger out of the mine to witness the sunset, which N'Jobu had described as a sight to behold. T'Challa offers Killmonger the chance to be healed, but he declines because he knows he will be imprisoned as a result. Killmonger wishes to be buried at sea with his ancestors, who knew that death was preferable to bondage. He dies peacefully after pulling the spear from his chest. As T'Challa reclaims his throne, Wakanda returns to normal life. He asks Nakia to stay in Wakanda once more because he has plans for her to assist him. And the two kisses. T'Challa meets Shuri outside Killmonger's old apartment in Oakland, and reveals that he purchased the building as well as two adjacent buildings in order to launch a Wakandan outreach program led by Nakia and Shuri. He then brings down their jet for the kids in the courtyard to see and wonder at. One of boys then approaches T'Challa and asks who he is. T'Challa is joined at the United Nations by Nakia, Shuri, and Okoye in the mid-credits scene. He reveals his plan for bringing Wakanda out of hiding so that they can collaborate with the rest of the world. In the post-credits, 3 Wakandan kids are looking someone in a hut. Shuri tells them not to bother the person. He shows up from the hut, and Bucky Barnes is revealed to be there. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Give thumbs up, share and subscribe this channel for more content like this. Have a good day and thanks for watching.